a funny thing to entertain the belief of the demiurge. That there are these Archons that feed on our negative energies and all kinds of energies, all kinds of loose energies that we continue to create out of these problems. And kind of similar to how a pearl is made inside of a oyster, like from a little bit of sand or something that got in there, and then it hurts them and they produce this stuff, and that's what the pearl comes from, right? That was like the worst explanation I've ever had for explaining something like that, though. But I've done a few videos on this, talking about the demiurge, the Archons, and I just haven't posted any of them. I actually just end up deleting each one because it's not very well done. But I always feel there's more I want to talk about and explain when it comes to the concepts of like recognizing that there's some kind of something trying to elicit these same kind of energy in us that we perhaps wouldn't choose to have if we had a choice. Like, we wouldn't choose to go back to like maybe feeling jealous at some point, or these really petty human emotions that precipitate outside of our will. They just happen, and then we have to navigate through them, and that's part of the playing field we're in. Yeah, so I didn't plan anything for this video as far as like what I'm going to talk about with the Archons, but I wanted to talk about them, and I keep deleting my videos that I'm going to post about it because I don't know, I'll share some story, and I don't know, it's probably them getting in my head trying to get me, like, stop me from posting stuff about it, which is such a silly thing to think. I don't even know what to say about it, to be honest. I might not even post this video. I probably won't, because there isn't like much of a core for it other than me just rambling on about Archons and the demiurge. And what Archons are is demons. I'm just the kind of person, I like to place bets on things. I'm like, I bet you in life that this thing is this, and after we get out and we get the stats, then who cares if I'm right or not? But if I called it, I don't know. It's not like I'm actually placing bets, but if I did call it, what does it even matter? Because like, no one's gonna be like, oh my god, that guy was right, that one guy on YouTube. Yeah, it doesn't really make any difference, except for the fact I want to hear other people's thoughts on it. Like, do you think it's just a matrix that like keeps running these programs of the felt presence of experience of these negative emotions that just recreated all the time? Like, I thought by the time I'd get older that I wouldn't feel those kind of like lower energy things, and I'm not like today, but it's just like moving through this space is kind of like molasses a lot of times, like just so slow, and even just to be able to have perspective and focus is just, it's like the easiest things are difficult. So it explains why people get so down and get hung up, stuck in these more negative emotions. I am like 2 hours late to work, and I feel horrible because my helper is waiting for me and doesn't have a key. Just waiting for me, and hopefully, well, at least their car is warm. But had all these plans for this morning, and I just woke up, and I usually wake up before my alarm, but I stay up a late, which sometimes happens, but not a big deal. But for some reason, I guess my body needed like 9 hours of sleep, and I just completely slept through my alarm, like by like 2 hours or an hour and a half or something. So I'm a little bit on the struggle bus today myself. And I want to talk about the Archons. I want to talk about them more. I want people to ask me questions, and I like to philosophize about it. Like, what is this force of nature? Because it might not be like living beings. Like, it's hard to imagine that advanced living beings would be such bottom feeders as far as vibrational, like, personas and how we are. It could just be the Matrix thing, but it's really not a very smart way to learn. Like, if you experience that a couple times, yeah, it's like, then we know what it is, and so that's good. But when it just happens, like, repeatedly, so many times, where it's like, okay, like, there's lots of other things to learn, like, why aren't we learning these other things? It makes this world, this life, kind of feel like a scam world, where it's like, I wanted to learn more things. I thought there would be more, like, as a seeker, that there would be more experiences and, like, learning, instead of just getting beat over the head with the same things. And just, I got to the point where I'm like, it's like those little finite beings such as me can think of more creative and clever ways to learn things than what's been going on down here for thousands of years. Like, that doesn't check out. That doesn't, like, there's no way I should be able to come up with a more proficient, healthy way to learn than what's going on down here. Like, how did I do that? Or am I just conceited? I don't think I am conceited, because I have experience learning. I mean, like, there's nothing more real than the empirical evidence of experiencing something. So, if I've experienced learning in different ways, I can tell you what ways were more effective by how much I absorbed from a specific way of learning. I'm probably going to post this video anyways, even though there's not much here, but I want to talk about it. Hell, even if the Archons reveal themselves, who cares? This video probably won't even be, like, recognized, and I don't really care about, like, oh, this guy knew. Like, there's probably lots of people that it wasn't that big of a surprise that there's other beings manipulating us, and have been for thousands of years, doing experiments on us, all kinds of, like, cultural experiments, personal experiments. Like, this is an experimenty world, but they have us in these, like, mental programs, or these mental loops, these phases that we just go through again and again. And I just feel like something should be said about it. Like, why is no one talking about how repetitive things are down here, and how forgetful we are about things, and how many times we have to learn the same things over and over? That's just not really what I came into a life to do. There's so many more things to explore. There's so much more of the spectrum. There's, like, often people will say, and this is what I said in my last video that I deleted and didn't upload, is that if you say, oh, if there wasn't so much hardship, and, like, things were just easy, it would just be boring. But that is, to me, such a limited way to think about it, because there's such an infinite spectrum of possibilities for interesting, novel ways to learn things without just going through the same things again and again in just slightly different, like, scenarios that are still pretty predictable. And it's like, still, I don't really consent to a lot of them, but I get subjected to them. And I would choose a better way to learn. There is, like, adequate mentorship. I'm not into trial and error, like, through life experience. Like, it's not how I want to learn. Like, I don't know if there's some big reward for discovering by trial and error and being, like, fortunate. I don't think there is. I think it's just more like a video game. It's like a position opens up, or like there's like, oh, these two people are gonna have a child, and like you're eligible to like be a part of this family or whatever, you know. And then you come down into a life, and you get the option maybe of different families to incarnate into. And, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if it went something like that. I don't have a whole lot of bright ideas on it. It's just like, that would make sense, you know. And it's funny. I laugh at it. It's kind of absurd to believe that there's, like, parasitic beings. But it also makes sense. I mean, why would we choose, like, the same insipid, like, toxic ways of learning again and again, as opposed to like something that would actually add to our stories a little bit more? Because I think of these lives as stories, like it's an artwork of like how we develop and who we are and how we learn and our characters and personalities, instead of just going through a world with all these convoluted beliefs and all these divisions between people. I mean, it's nice to have different opinions on things, but I think it's just being so divided is really made things more difficult than they have to be, which is maybe part of the test. And maybe I'm a little farther along, or maybe I'm behind, but I've really done my work as a seeker to be like trying to observe like what is going on down here, what is happening. And I think more people should be doing that instead of just rolling with the punches. I mean, I've been rolling with the punches too. I mean, what else are you gonna do? But I think what else you can do is question it. Like, why is this the way? Like, if you can think of a better way, let's do that. And we just get so stuck in these perpetual, like, repetitive ways of doing it. Like, oh, this is how they've been doing it the last 100 years, though this is the tried and true way. But oftentimes we discover 100 years after that it's like, oh, that was a horrible way. There was like a way better way to like do this thing or approach like whatever in life. I know that's really vague, but there's just lots of things that could apply to. And I'll think of more specific examples. I'm just trying to flesh it out through language and bring to light the questions, like the fundamental questions of who we are and what we're doing here, who put us here, what are these cyclical things that keep happening to us and that we keep finding ourselves in, and how to break free of that insipid cycle of just like the same kind of low-level emotions all the time. Not all the time, there's good ones too, but it's just like the flux of back and forth. That's just not how I would choose to. It's just not how I choose to go. It's not how I choose to learn. There's better ways to learn. And that's what I keep saying. And I haven't really heard other people say it. But yeah, why does it have to be so arduous? Like, when there's so many fantastic ways of learning things, where your heart is still involved in the challenge. Because oftentimes, if you lose heart, it's like playing a video game or playing a board game that you don't want to play. You're just doing it because it's like, what are you gonna do? Just quit? There's not much for options there. But I think it's worth talking about. That's why I'm making a video on it. Maybe I'll upload it. One of those days, I tell ya.